Everyone, thanks for joining us this week for another episode of Recovery in 20. This week, we're joined by Patrick. He works on the admissions team, client access advocate is his official title. And we're here to talk about all the crazy acronyms and letters that fly around when you're talking about treatment. I know for me, when I was looking, I had no idea what PHP, IOP, any of this was. I kind of figured out residential on my own.
Well,
the name's
that's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, but the rest of them, I was just I don't know what any of these mean.
Same.
So I'm sure if I was looking for that, I'm sure people watching have questions too. So we're going to break it down.
Sure.
So PHP, residential, IOP, OP, these are the main four terms that are used in the recovery space. So what is residential treatment specifically?
Sure. So I'll start by saying everyone has questions about these. Clients especially who call, it is a lot. And a lot of it are just terms, right? So inpatient residential treatment, essentially what that means is everything is on site. It's a bubble. You have your detox on site. You have your clinical care on site, 25, 30 hours a week or whatever it is of clinical time on site. And clients also live on site. Inpatient treatment can be very expensive. When I went, the place I went, which was not anything fancy, it wasn't the Ritz or anything like that.
We went to the same place.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. So out-of-pocket cost for that would be like $1,000 a day, $30,000 a month. And again, that's kind of just like a middle-of-the-road type place. There are far more expensive places than that. The other experience I had in treatment when dealing with insurance was that I didn't get a full 30-day stay. Insurance, and this was far more common than not. Insurance companies are not likely to approve a full stay like that. I got kicked out after 20-something days because of insurance purposes. You've used up your residential treatment, that's it.
I would say when I was there, the vast majority of other clients there left before the 33 days was up. Like, I would, upwards of 80%.
Yeah, and some of it was a significant. I was lucky enough to be able to stay 20-something days. Others, insurers kicked them out after 2 weeks, around the 2-week mark. And that's really not fair when you're going in expecting one thing, paying all this money, and then, you wake up one day and they tell you you're leaving this afternoon. And it worked that way in many, many cases in my experience.
I don't want to turn this into a total health insurance bashing session, but it would be, I think, in their financial long-term interest to treat addiction upfront, quickly, for whatever the cost. Then, relapses, 3 more stays at treatment centers. Like, it would be beneficial to their bottom line if they...
and I had those conversations too, because even while I was there, I mean, within the span of the 20-something days I was there, a person would leave and then come back a few weeks later for that exact reason. If you don't get the care you need, what's the point of going, right? So
so you live on site. There's usually detox there, and there's a therapy aspect as well.
Right, and it's the day. It's 5-6 hours a day during the week, so 20 to 30 hours of clinical time. But everything is on site. You're in this bubble, living there, detoxing there, seeing your therapist there. Everything is there.
So that leads us to PHP, which stands for partial hospitalization. So what is that?
Right. So partial hospitalization is an interesting term because there's no actual hospitalization involved. It is the main difference, the way I see it, between residential and PHP is that you are living at a different site, at a different place than you're doing your clinical time. So you'll do your clinical time at the center, and then you can go home, or you can live somewhere else. So if you have kids, or if you have night school, you can go do the same amount of clinical time, 25, 30 hours a week on site, and then go live elsewhere. Aspen Ridge has recovery residences, which are a cool advantage because you could do your clinical time, live off-site in our recovery residences, and because we have BHTs, behavioral health technicians that live there, you're actually getting even more clinical time just by living with us. It adds that extra accountability.
That's right, because they're getting their CAC hours or recovery coaching.
Exactly. All of them are either CAC certified or on their way to it, or have the recovery coach training. So it's just more time with someone in the professional capacity who knows about this stuff. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, so who would be like a good candidate for this? Obviously, I'm assuming most PHPs don't do like a detox on site, since that's a whole different complex medical issue. So what's the process if someone's, say, an alcoholic and they've been drinking for a long time and they need a medical detox? How do they get from, what do they do? How do they make it to PHP without the residential stuff in there?
Yeah, so we have detox facilities, connected to us that we work with, but they're off-site as well for that medical detox purposes. It's not for everything, but if someone is potentially going to have some serious medical issues during detox, we'll make sure they get that help off-site and then come to us for PHP. So again, everything's not connected to the same site. You'll still get the help you need. You'll go to detox off-site, and then you'll come to us, and you can live with us or you cannot live with us. The people who do live with us, I think the numbers show that the success rate is higher of long-term, success and recovery. But it's again, PHP. You don't have to live. You're not in a bubble. You're from day one. You are able to, just by living off-site, even though it might sound small, it gives you a chance to integrate into society, into the real world right away, even while you're starting treatment, as opposed to when I went to treatment, I was in a bubble for 30 days, and it was a shock. When I got home and opened my freezer, and I got home and I picked up my cell phone, it was a lot to have to deal with, and a lot of people don't make it past that initial wave once you leave a bubble coming from residential. In PHP, everything is kind of integrated there with you, in unison at the same time.
I agree that recovery residences, sober living aspect of it is crucial. I remember when I was leaving the place, we were at just being terrified, like, gosh, I'm just gonna go home. Did I get enough out of this in the past 30 days to stay clean and sober? And I went to sober living afterwards because I didn't trust myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I should also mention that the PHP program, it can last anywhere up to 90 days. So that is significantly longer than just a typical 30-day residential treatment, because as you say, 30 days is, everybody's different, right? Depending on what substance you're using, how often, whether you need to go to detox. 30 days may be long enough, it may not be. That's PHP. You can be with us in our programming and or living with us for up to 90 days, which is a huge advantage.
So how does the clinical care, the amount of therapy you get, differ from residential and PHP?
It really doesn't. You're getting the same amount of clinical hours, really, because during our PHP program, you're with us 6 hours a day. So 25, 30 hours a week, you're with us getting the same amount of clinical time, group, individual sessions, family programming. You get it all. The clinical stuff, in my eyes, is equivalent to what you're getting in residential treatment.
So I'm assuming it's without the having to pay treatments that are having to pay the doctors on site and have like an actual medical facility for people to detox, that it would probably be a bit cheaper than your typical residential program.
Much cheaper. It's not even half. So that number I threw out, which about $30,000 a month for a typical 30-day treatment stay in residential, it's less than half of that if someone were paying out of pocket for our PHP program.
And I imagine probably an easier sell to insurance companies than
exactly. And I think, I have not worked with one client whose insurance company said, no, you can't do PHP, or we're cutting you off here, we're drawing the line here. They don't do that. I don't understand all the insurance terms, and there's a lot there's a lot of variables there, but I can tell you from my experience that I've never once had a client who was cut short on their expected length of stay with us because of insurance. Insurance is much more likely to approve it, and they're much more likely to approve longer lengths of stays for PHP than they would be for residential.
And you said it could be up to 90 days.
Right.
How does that determination get made?
So I think that's kind of a combination between the client's needs, the treatment plan, and also the clinical team. Everyone wants everyone to get the help that they need. We want everyone to make sure that if they need a longer term stay, that they can. But also, everybody's different. People have lives, different variables in their life. So maybe 30 days is enough for someone. They get out and they go back to their kids. They kind of start integrating back into their job. That works for some people. For others, they are really looking forward to a longer stay. 30 to 90 days just gives it's part of our continuum of care, to where it gives you more options depending on what you need medically and whatever's going on in your life. We try to be able to work with everyone.
Cool. I will stress, just for the sake of it, based on personal experience, the importance of detox if you are on certain substances. As someone who's had 2 alcohol withdrawal seizures, a benzo withdrawal seizure, it's critically important if you're on at least those 2 substances to be your own doctors, because the consequences can be pretty life-threatening.
They can be deadly in some cases.
So we got the next one, IOP. Now, I was peripherally aware of what this was. I just had never heard the term IOP before. So it stands for intensive outpatient. What is that?
Sure. So first of all, I was the same with you. Vaguely familiar with the term, but not at all with the context of it. I think I kind of, equivocated 12-step programs with IOP, like something on that kind of level. But in reality, IOP is it's intensive outpatient. So the client is coming in for us around 15 hours of clinical time a week. We have Aspen Ridge has one in the morning and one in the evening, 2 different programs just to kind of give people more options. Again, IOP is a great kind of middle section of our continuum of care. Someone could come from PHP or from another residential treatment facility and decide that this is the level of care they need right now. Whether you have a job or you have kids, it's a chance for you to continue to be held accountable, continue to get clinical care during the week, but also be able to go to your job if you have to, work with your kids if you have to, start to integrate back into society if you have to. Also, some people, just depending on where you're at and what substances you're using, not everybody needs the full PHP thing.
Especially if you're coming from a residential place,
exactly.
You might not need...
Exactly. So someone gets out of residential, they were just doing the all-day, everyday type of programming, and now eventually you have to get back. The point of this is to learn the tools to be able to live a normal and happy life, right? And so this is kind of a step down from the all-day, everyday PHP programming. And like I said, it gives people a chance to come in, get plenty of clinical time in a group setting, in an individual setting, but just step down the amount of clinical hours that you're getting from that PHP.
How many clinical hours are there versus the 25 to 30 at PHP and residential? How many hours in IOP?
Yeah, so for IOP, it's about 15 hours a week. We have a program in the morning and we have a program in the evening, but it's about half the amount of clinical time.
So that's still a lot of...
And it's still a lot. 15 hours a week is a lot. It is, but it's just part of it. It's necessary for some people to do that. We have people also who start in IOP. Like, maybe that's just what they want for their life, and maybe that's what they need. Again, these discussions are had between them and the clinical team, and maybe they just don't. They're not that far progressed. And maybe they catch it before it gets to that point, or maybe they're a professional who, frankly, some people come in court ordered. Just whatever the reason is, it's just a part of our continuum of care to give people more options, whether it's a step down, or whether it's just an alternative choice.
Do people have the recovery residence options?
Yeah, the recovery residences, whether you're in PHP or one of our IOP programs, you could always come live with us in our recovery residences, which are sober living style environments, but there's more accountability there. You have the behavioral health technicians living there, which adds so much to the experience. You have someone there, who can take care of things safely and professionally. But yeah, you can always live with us. If you're in PHP and you step down to IOP and get a job, you could still stay with us. It adds so much to the overall, the overall experience that it's always an option for anyone who's in any of our programs.
And there's an online option as well called Reach, which I must admit, when I first heard about it, I was initially a little skeptical. I was like, is online IOP gonna actually work? And over the past year, getting to know our Reach clinicians and hearing the stories of the clients that have come through that program, I was totally blown away at how effective it can be at home for working moms are big in that program, especially working professionals that, somebody at the C-suite level doesn't want to be seen going into, Aspen Ridge or, a recovery center. They want to be discreet, and it's a great option for that too.
Absolutely. And I was also surprised to learn, or I didn't know this when I started, was that Reach, our virtual program, was not started because of COVID. We've been doing it for a while. It's set up. It's very smooth, and just location. We can serve the entire state of Colorado and Wyoming for people who just physically can't make it into the center. It's a great option for lots of different reasons.
Yeah, especially for Wyoming. I've been to Wyoming.
Yeah, not much
There's not much of anything there, let alone treatment centers around.
And we get a lot of calls from there for that exact reason. There's just not much there in the way of drug and alcohol treatment.
Yeah, good to expand that. So what is OP?
Okay, so OP is, they've dropped the intensive. It's outpatient, right? And it's kind of, if you're following through the entire level of our continuum of care, it's kind of the last one. It's a chance for people who, so it's about 3 hours a week, right? Once a week, 1.5 to 3 hours a week. You can do OP for 30 days or you can do it for 6 months. So it's kind of a chance for people to keep in touch, keep that accountability, get some clinical time once a week, maybe as opposed to, seeing an individual session, maybe working things out in a group setting is more beneficial. And you'll have the chance to do that in our OP program.
Cool. So can people just join OP?
Sure.
Like if the clinicians think that they're ready for that?
Yeah, absolutely. You can. If that's what again, the client and the clinicians think is appropriate, then yeah, that's always an option for sure. And again, the cool thing about that is it can last up to 6 months if you choose. And it's once a week, which isn't a huge commitment, but it is a commitment, and you are getting face-to-face clinical time. So it's a good deal for a lot of people.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So the goal of all of this is to keep people engaged in the recovery process for as long as possible.
Absolutely.
I think.
Yes, absolutely. Like if someone did our whole, from start to finish, PHP to OP, I mean, that's, 6-9 months of treatment with us where you're constantly getting the attention you need, constantly building community, building relationships, and, just getting the help you need. And
doing that hard work.
Yeah, doing the work. And it's hard work. Yeah, absolutely.
And then, you don't have to leave. We've got an alumni program too. You can hang out with Mary. Mm-hmm. She does fun barbecues, paintball, trips to Cave of the Winds in Colorado Springs. So you don't ever have to leave.
That's good.
Aspen Ridge.
Right. And the alumni stuff is all free. For alumni, it's great. Mary's fantastic.
Well, I think we pretty much covered everything a couple minutes early. Is there anything else we should know about PHP, IOP, Aspen Ridge?
Well, I mean, I could share a little bit about my own personal experience.
Yeah, please do.
I didn't know. These terms get thrown around. When you're seeking treatment, it can be a lot. People are just seeking help, right? I wish I had known about something like a PHP program before I decided to go to residential, honestly, because the advantages are such that I just feel like it would have set me up a little bit better for long-term success, having the blend of real-world interaction while also getting full-time clinical treatment. It was very scary for me for the first week home after I left residential treatment because there were just wave after wave, day after day of these new things that when you're in residential treatment in that bubble, they don't go away. They're just there. And so
just on pause.
Right. Now I'm still in recovery. I'm still clean and sober. So it's worked for me thus far. However, I wish I had known about these options ahead of time, particularly PHP, because for lots of different reasons, I just think it's very advantageous in a lot of different ways to go that route. So I'm glad you're doing this because like I said, it's just letters on a page whenever you're just seeking treatment and looking for something now.
Yeah,
right?
I had been sober for 3 years before I started working for Aspen Ridge, and I had no idea what PHP was. So I mean, if someone like me who's been to treatment and is active in the recovery community had no idea, I'm sure there's tons of people out there that jump on a website and they're like, I don't know what all these are.
100%. The calls I get are almost without fail. They're asking, what is PHP? What is partial hospitalization? I think the hospital word in there, that's just an insurance term, but it throws people off. And so I like I said, I'll just reiterate, I really am glad you're doing this because having that option out there that people don't even know about, that is, it's just great. And I really wish I had watched this Facebook Live before I went to treatment, because I would have at least considered other alternatives, right?
Absolutely, and I think I would have felt a little bit more confident going back out into the world, knowing I'd still be doing like the same amount of clinical work during the day, just kind of going home or to a sober living at night. I think I would have felt, pardon me, a little bit more confident.
100%. Agreed. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for jumping off the phones to come and hang out with us for a little bit.
Sure.
We're going to be off next week for the holiday, but we'll be back the week after. And if you or someone you know needs help with addiction, mental health, or trauma, you can visit AspenRidgeRecovery.com. Or you can always give Patrick a call at 855-281-5588. We do accept most major insurance. Thanks again for